First God, not God at the margins, not God as an option, not God on the weekends, God first and last. God, God, God. Genesis gets us off on the right foot. God doesn't work impersonally from space. He works with us where we are as He finds us. No matter what we do, whether good or bad, we continue to be part of everything that God is doing. Nobody can drop out. There's no place to drop out to. So we may as well get started and take our place in the story at the beginning. Heaven and earth. First, this God created the heavens and earth. All you see, all you don't see. Earth was a soup of nothingness, a bottomless emptiness, an inky blackness. God's spirit brooded like a bird above the watery abyss. God spoke light, and light appeared. God saw that light was good and separated light from dark. God named the light day. He named the dark night. It was evening. It was morning. Day one. God spoke sky in the middle of the waters. Separate water from water. God made sky. He separated the water under sky from the water above sky, and there it was. He named sky the heavens. It was evening. It was morning. Day two. God spoke separate water beneath heaven. Gather into one place. Land appeared, and there it was. God named the land earth. He named the pooled water ocean. God saw that it was good. God spoke earth green up, grow all varieties of seed-bearing plants, every sort of fruit-bearing tree. And there it was. Earth produced green seed-bearing plants, all varieties, and fruit-bearing trees of all sorts. God saw that it was good. It was evening. It was morning. Day three. God spoke lights, come out, shine in heaven's sky, separate day from night, mark seasons and days and years, lights in heaven's sky to give light on earth, lights in heaven's sky to give light to earth. And there it was. God made two big lights, the larger to take charge of day, the smaller to be in charge of night, and He made the stars. God placed them in the heavenly sky to light up earth and oversee day and night. To separate light and dark, God saw that it was good. It was evening. It was morning. Day four. God spoke, swarm, ocean with fish and all sea life. Birds fly through the sky over earth. God created the huge whales, all the swarm of life in the waters, and every kind of species of flying birds. God saw that it was good. God blessed them, prosper, reproduce, fill ocean. Birds reproduce on earth. It was evening. It was morning. Day five. God spoke earth, generate life, every sort and kind, cattle and reptiles and wild animals, all kinds. And there it was, wild animals of every kind, cattle of all kinds, every sort of reptile and bug. God saw that it was good. God spoke, let us make human beings in our image, make them reflecting our nature, so that they can be responsible for the fish in the sea, the birds in the air, the cattle, and yes, earth itself, and every animal that moves on the face of earth. God created human beings. He created them godlike, reflecting God's nature. He created them male and female. God blessed them, prosper, reproduce, fill earth, take charge, be responsible for fish in the sea and birds in the air, for every living thing that moves on the face of earth. Then God said, I've given you every sort of seed-bearing plant on earth and every kind of fruit-bearing tree, given them to you for food. To all animals and all birds, everything that moves and breathes. I give whatever grows out of the ground for food. And there it was. God looked over everything He had made. It was good, so very good. It was evening, it was morning, day six. Heaven and earth were finished, down to the last detail. By the seventh day, God had finished His work. On the seventh day, He rested from all His work. God blessed the seventh day. He made it a holy day, because on that day He rested from His work, all the creating God had done. This is the story of how it all started, of heaven and earth when they were created. Adam and Eve, 5-7. At the time God made earth and heaven, before any grasses or shrubs had sprouted from the ground, God hadn't sent rain on earth, nor was there anyone around to work the ground. The whole earth was watered by underground springs. God formed man out of dirt from the ground and blew into his nostrils the breath of life. The man came alive, a living soul. Then God planted a garden in Eden in the east. He put the man He had just made in it. God made all kinds of trees to grow from the ground, trees beautiful to look at and good to eat. The tree of life was in the middle of the garden. Also the tree of knowledge of good and evil. A river flows out of Eden to water the garden, and there divides into 4 rivers. The first is named Pishon. Pishon, okay. It flows through Havilah, where there is gold. The gold of this land is good. The land is also known for a sweet scented resin and the onyx stone. The second river is named Gihon. It flows through the land of Cush. The third river is named Hiddekal and flows east of Azariah. The fourth river is the Euphrates. God took the man and set him down in the Garden of Eden to work the ground and keep it in order. God commanded the man, "You can eat from any tree in the garden except from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Don't eat from it. The moment you eat from that tree, you're dead. You can eat from any tree in the garden except from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Don't eat from it. The moment you eat from that tree, you're dead." God said it's not good for the man to be alone. I'll make him a helper, a companion. So God formed from the dirt of the ground all the animals of the field and all the birds of the air. He brought them to the man to see what he would name them. Whatever the man called each living creature, that was its name. The man named the cattle, named the birds of the air, named the wild animals, but he didn't find a suitable companion. God put the man into a deep sleep. As he slept, he removed one of his ribs and replaced it with flesh. God then used the rib that he had taken from the man to make woman and presented her to the man. The man said, "Finally, bone of my rib, flesh of my flesh, name her woman, for she was made from man." Therefore, a man leaves his father and mother and embraces his wife. They become one flesh. The two of them, the man and his wife, were naked, but they felt no shame. The serpent was clever, more clever than any wild animal had. The serpent was clever, more clever than any wild animal God had made. He spoke to the woman. "Do I understand that God told you not to eat from any tree in the garden?" The woman said to the serpent, "Not at all. We can eat from any tree in the garden. It's only about the tree in the middle of the garden that God said, 'Don't eat from it. Don't even touch it, or you'll die.'" The serpent told the woman, "You won't die. God knows that the moment you eat from that tree, you'll see what's really going on. You'll just be like God, knowing everything, ranging all the way from good to evil." When the woman saw that the tree looked like good eating, and realized that what she would get out of it, she'd know everything. She took and ate the fruit, and then gave some to her husband, and he ate. Immediately the two of them did see what's really going on, saw themselves naked. They sewed fig leaves together as makeshift clothes for themselves. When they heard the sound of God strolling in the garden of the Eden in the evening breeze, the man and his wife hid in the trees of the garden, hid from God. God called to the man, "Where are you?" He said, "I heard you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked and I hid." God said, "Who told you that you were naked? Did you eat from the tree I told you not to eat from?" The man said, "The woman you gave me as a companion, she gave me fruit from the tree, and yes, I ate it." God said to the woman, "What is this that you've done?" "The serpent seduced me," she said, "and I ate." God told the serpent, "Because you've done this, you're cursed. Cursed beyond all cattle and wild animals. Cursed to slink on your belly and eat dirt all your life. I'm declaring war between you and the woman, between your offspring and hers. He'll wound your head, you'll wound his heel." He told the woman, "I'll multiply your pains in childbirth. You'll give birth to your babies in pain. You'll want to please your husband, but he'll lord over you." He told the man, "Because you listened to your wife and ate from the tree that I commanded you not to eat from, don't eat from this tree. The very ground is cursed because of you. Getting food from the ground will be as painful as having babies. Getting food from the ground will be as painful as having babies is for your wife. The ground will sprout thorns and weeds. You'll get your food the hard way, planting and tilling and harvesting, sweating in the fields from dawn to dusk, until you return to that ground yourself, dead and buried. You started out as dirt, you'll end up as dirt, or you'll end up dirt. The man known as Adam named his wife Eve because she was the mother of all the living. God made God made leather clothing for Adam and his wife and dressed him. God said the man has become like one of us, capable of knowing everything ranging from good to evil. What if he know now should what if he now should reach out and take fruit from the tree of life and eat and live forever? Never. This cannot happen. So God expelled them from the Garden of Eden and sent them to work the ground, the same dirt out of which they'd been made. He threw them out of the garden and stationed angel cherubim and a revolving sword of fire east of it, guarding the path to the tree of life. Adam slept with Eve, his wife. She conceived and had Cain. She said, I've gotten a man with God's help. Then she had another baby, Abel. Abel was a herdsman and Cain a farmer. Time passed. Cain brought an offering to God from the produce of his farm. Abel also brought an offering, but from the firstborn animals of his herd, choice cuts of meat. God liked Abel and his offspring, but Cain and his offering didn't get his approval. Cain lost his temper and went into a sulk. God spoke to Cain, "Why this tantrum? Why the sulking? If you do well, won't you be accepted? And if you don't do well, sin is lying in wait for you, ready to pounce. It's out to get you. You've got to master it." Cain had words with his brother. They were out in the field. Cain came at Abel, his brother, and killed him. God said to Cain, "Where is Abel, your brother?" He said, "How should I know? Am I his babysitter? God said, "What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is calling to me from the ground. From now on, you'll get nothing but curses from this ground. You'll be driven from this ground that has opened its arms to receive the blood of your murdered brother. You'll farm this ground, but it will no longer give you its best. You'll be a homeless wanderer to earth." Cain said to God, "My punishment is too much. I can't take it. You've thrown me off the land, and I can never again face you. I'm a homeless man. I'm a homeless wanderer on earth, and whoever finds me will kill me." God told him, "No, anyone who kills Cain will pay for it 7 times over." God put a mark on Cain to protect him so that no one who met him would kill him. Cain left the presence of God and lived in no man's land east of Eden. Cain slept with his wife. She conceived and had Enoch. He then built a city and named it after his son Enoch. Enoch had Irad. Irad had Mahujal. Mahujal had Methuselah. Methuselah had Lamech. Lamech married 2 wives, Adal and Zillah. Adal gave birth to Jabal, the ancestor of all who live in his tents and his herd and cattle. His brother's name was Jabal, the ancestor of all who play in lyre and flute. Zillah gave birth to Tubal-Cain, who worked at the forge making bronze and iron tools. Tubal-Cain's sister was named Naamah. Lamech said to his wives, Adah and Zillah, listen to me, you wives of Lamech, hear me out. I killed a man for wounding me, a young man who attacked me. If Cain is avenged 7 times for Lamech, it's 77. Adam slept with his wife again. She had a son. Adam slept with his wife again. She had a son whom she named Seth. She said, God had given me another child in place of Abel, whom Cain killed. And then Seth had a son whom he named Enoch. That's when men and women began praying and worshiping in the name of God. The family tree of the human race. The family tree of the human race. This is the family tree of the human race. When God created the human race, he made it godlike, with the nature akin to God. He created both male and female and blessed them, the whole human race. When Adam was 130 years old, he had a son who was just like him, his very spirit and image, and named him Seth. After the birth of Seth, Adam lived another 800 years. Having more sons and daughters, Adam lived a total of 930 years, and he died. When Seth was 105 years old, he had Enoch. After Seth had Enosh. After Seth had Enosh, he lived another 807 years. Having more sons and daughters, Seth lived a total of 912 years, and he died. When Enosh was 99 years old, he had Kenan. After he had Kenan, he lived another 815 years. Having more sons and daughters, Enosh lived a total of 905 years, and he died. When Kenan was 70 years old, he had Mahalalel. After he had Mahalalel, he lived another 840 years. Having more sons and daughters, Kenan lived a total of 910 years, and he died. When Mahalalel was 65 years old, he had Jared. After he had Jared, he lived another 830 years. Having more sons and daughters, Mahalalel lived a total of 895 years, and he died. When Jared was 162 years old, he had Enoch. After he had Enoch, he lived another 800 years. Having more sons and daughters, Jared lived a total of 963 years, and he died. When Enoch was 65 years old, he had Methuselah. Enoch walked steadily with God. After he had Methuselah. He lived another 300 years, having more sons and daughters. Enoch lived a total of 365 years. Enoch walked steadily with God, and then one day he was simply gone. God took him. When Methuselah was 187 years old, he had Lamech. After he had Lamech, he lived another 782 years. Methuselah lived a total of 969 years, and he died. When Lamech was 182 years old, he had a son he named Noah, saying, "This one will give us a break from the hard work of farming the ground that God cursed." After Lamech had Noah, he lived another 595 years. Having more sons and daughters, Lamech lived a total of 777 years, and he died. When Noah was 500 years old, he had Shem, Ham, and Japheth, giants in the land. When the human race began to increase, with more and more daughters being born, the sons of God noticed that the daughters of men were beautiful. They looked them over and picked out wives for themselves. Then God said, I'm not going to breathe life into men and women endlessly. Eventually they're going to die. From now on they can expect a lifespan of 120 years. This was back in the days and also later when there were giants in the land. The giants came from the union of the sons of God and the daughters of men. They were the mighty men of ancient lore, the famous ones. Noah and his sons. God saw that human evil was out of control. People thought evil, imagined evil, from morning to night. God was sorry that he had made the human race in the first place. It broke his heart. I'll get rid of my ruined creation. Make a clean sweep. People, animals, snakes, and bugs, birds, the works. I'm sorry I made them. But Noah was different. God liked what he saw in Noah. This is the story of Noah. Noah was a good man, a man of integrity in his community. Noah walked with God. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. As far as God was concerned, the earth had become a sewer. There was violence everywhere. God took one look and saw how bad it was. Everyone corrupt and corrupting. Life itself corrupt to the core. God said to Noah, it's all over. It's the end of the human race. The violence is everywhere. I'm making a clean sweep. Build yourself a ship from teak wood. Make rooms in it. Coat it with pitch inside and out. Make it 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. Build a roof for it. And put in a window 18 inches from the top. Put in a door on the side of the ship and make it 3 decks, lower, middle, and upper. I'm going to bring a flood on the earth that will destroy everything alive under heaven. Total destruction. But I'm going to establish a covenant with you. You'll board the ship, and your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives will come on board with you. You are also able to take 2 of each living creature, a male and a female, on board the ship, to preserve their lives with you. two of every species of bird, mammal, and reptile, two of everything so as to preserve their lives along with yours. Also get also get all the food you'll need and store it up for you and them. Noah did everything God commanded him to do. Next, God said to Noah, "Now board the ship, you and all your family. Now board the ship, you and all your family. Out of everyone in this generation, you're the righteous one. Take on board with you 7 pairs of every clean animal, a male and female, 1 pair of every unclean animal, a male and a female, and 7 pairs of every kind of bird, a male and a female, to ensure their survival on earth. In just 7 days, I will pour rain on earth for 40 days and 40 nights. I'll make a clean sweep of everything that I've made." Noah did everything God commanded him. Noah was 600 years old when the flood waters covered the earth. Noah and his wife and sons and their wives boarded the ship to escape the flood. Clean and unclean animals, birds, and all the crawling creatures came in pairs to Noah and to the ship, male and female, just as God had commanded Noah. In 7 days the flood waters came. It was the 600th year of Noah's life. In the second month, on the 17th day of that month, it was the 600th year of Noah's life. In the second month, on the 17th day of the month that it happened, all of the underground springs erupted, and all the windows of heaven were thrown open. Rain poured for 40 days and 40 nights. That's the day Noah and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, accompanied by his wife and his sons' wives, boarded the ship, and with them every kind of wild and domestic animal, right down to all the kinds of creatures that crawl, and all kinds of birds and anything that flies. They came to Noah and to the ship in pairs, everything and anything that had the breath of life in it, male and female of every creature came, just as God had commanded Noah. Then God shut the door behind him. The flood continued 40 days, and the waters rose and lifted the ship high over the earth. The waters kept rising. The flood deepened on the earth. The ship floated on the surface. The flood got worse until all the highest mountains were covered. The high water mark reacted 20 feet above the crest of the mountains. Everything died. Anything that moved, dead birds, farm animals, wild animals, the entire teeming exuberance of life dead. And all people dead. Every living, breathing creature that lived on dry land dead. He wiped out the whole works. People and animals, crawling creatures and flying birds, every last one of them gone. Only Noah and his company on the ship lived. The flood waters took over for 150 days. Then God turned his attention to Noah and all the wild animals and farm animals with him, and on the Then God turned his attention to Noah and all the wild animals and farm animals with him on the ship. God caused the wind to blow, and the floodwaters began to go down. The underground springs were shut off. The windows of heaven closed it, and the rain quit. Inch by inch, the water lowered. After 150 days, the worst was over. On the 17th day of the 7th month, the ship landed on the Ararat mountain range. The water kept going down until the 10th month. On the first day of the 10th month, the tops of the mountains came into view. After 40 days, Noah opened up the window that he had built into the ship. He sent out a raven. It flew back and forth, waiting for the floodwaters to dry up. Then he sent a dove to check on the flood conditions, but it couldn't even find a place to perch. Water still covered the earth. Noah reached out and caught it, brought it back onto the ship. He waited 7 more days and sent out the dove again. It came back in the evening with a freshly picked olive leaf in its beak. Noah knew that the flood was about finished. He waited another 7 days and sent the dove out a third time. This time it didn't come back. In the 601st year of Noah's life, on the first day of the first month, the flood had dried up. Noah opened the hatch of the ship and saw dry ground. By the 27th day of the second month, the earth was completely dry. God spoke to Noah, "Leave the ship, you and your wife and your sons' wives, and take all the animals with you, the whole menagerie of birds and birds and mammals and crawling creatures, all that swarming extravagance of life, so that they can reproduce and flourish on the earth. Noah disembarked with his sons and his wife and his sons' wives. Then all the creatures, crawling creatures, birds, every creature on the face of the earth, left the ship, family by family. Noah built an altar to God. He selected clean animals and birds from every species and offered them as burnt offerings on the altar. God smelled the sweet fragrance and thought to himself, I'll never again curse the ground because of people. I know that they have bent this toward evil from an early age. But I'll never again kill off everything living, just as I'll never again curse the ground because of people. I know they have this bent toward evil from an early age. I know they have this bent toward evil from an early age. I know they have this bent toward an early. I know they have this bent toward evil from an early age. I know they have this bent toward evil from an early age. But I'll never again kill off everything living as I've just done. For as long as the earth lasts, planting and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will never stop. God blessed Noah and his sons. He said, prosper, reproduce, fill the earth. Every living creature, birds, animals, fish, will fall under your spell and be afraid of you. You're responsible for them. All living creatures are yours for food. Just as I give you the plants, now I give you everything else, except for meat with its lifeblood still in it. Don't eat that. But your own lifeblood I will avenge. I will avenge it against both animals and other humans. Whoever sheds human blood, by humans let his blood be shed. Because God made humans in his image, reflecting God's very nature. You're here to bear fruit, reproduce, lavish life on the earth, live bountifully. Whoever sheds human blood, by humans let his blood be shed. Because God made humans in his image, reflecting God's very nature. You're here to bear fruit. You're here to bear fruit, reproduce, lavish life on the earth, live bountifully. Live bountifully. Then God spoke to Noah and his sons. I'm setting up my covenant with you, including your children who will come after you, along with everything alive around you, bird, farm animals, wild animals that came out of the ship with you. I'm setting up my covenant with you that never again will everything living be destroyed by floodwaters. No, never again will a flood destroy the earth. God continued, this is a sign of the covenant I am making between me and you. Everything living around you and everything living after you, I'm putting my rainbow in the clouds, a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. From now on, when I form a cloud over the earth and my rainbow appears in the cloud, I'll remember my covenant between me and you and everything living, that never again will flood waters destroy all life. When the rainbow appears in the cloud, I'll see it and remember the eternal covenant between God and everything living, every last living creature on the earth. And God said, this is the sign of the covenant that I've set up between me and everything living on the earth. The sons of Noah who came out of the ship were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan. These are the three sons of Noah. From these three, the whole earth was populated. Noah, a farmer, was the first to plant a vineyard. He drank from its wine, he got drunk and passed out naked in his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw that his father was naked and told his two brothers who were outside the tent. Shem and Japheth took a cloak, held it between them from their shoulders, walked backward, and covered their father's nakedness, keeping their faces turned away so they did not see their father's exposed body. When Noah woke up with his hangover, he learned what his youngest son had done. He said, cursed be Canaan, a slave of slaves, a slave to his brothers. Blessed be God, the God of Shem, but Canaan shall be his slave. God prosper Japheth, living spaciously in the tents of Shem, but Canaan shall be his slave. Noah lived another 350 years following the flood. He lived a total of 950 years and he died. The family tree of Noah's sons. This is the family tree of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. After the flood, they themselves had sons. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, Tyros, the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, Rephath, Togarmah, the sons of Javan, Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, Rodanim. The seafaring peoples developed them from these, each in its own place by family, each with its own language. The sons of Ham, Cush, Egypt, Put, Canaan, the sons of Cush, Sabah, Havilah, Sabta, Ramamah, Sabteka, Sabteka. The sons of Ramah, Sheba, Dedan. Cush also had Nimrod. He was the first great warrior on earth. He was a great hunter before God. There was a saying, like Nimrod, a great hunter before God, his kingdom got its start with Babal. Then Erech, Akkad, and Calneh in the country of Shinar. From there he went up to Ashur and built Nineveh, Rehoboth, Calah, and Rezin between Nineveh and the great city Calah. Egypt was ancestor to the Ludum, the Ananim, the Lehabam, the Naphtuhim, the Pathrusim, the Kaluahim, the origin of the Philistines, and the Caphtorim. Canaan had Sidon, his firstborn, Hith, the Jebusites, the Amorites, the Girgashites, the Hivites, the Archites, the Sinites, the Arvadites, the Semarites, and the Hamathites. Later the Canaanites spread out, going from Sidon toward Gedar, as far south as Gaza, and then east all the way over to Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and on to Lasha. These are the descendants of Ham by family, language, country, and nation. Shem, the older brother of Japheth, also had sons. Shem was ancestor to all the children of Eber. The sons of Shem, Elam, Ashur, Arphaxad, Lud, and Haram. The sons of Aram, Uz, Ul, Gethar, Mashuk. Arphaxad had Shelah, and Shelah had Eber. Eber had two sons, Peleg, so named because in his days the human race divided, and Joktan. Joktan had Almadad, Shalif, Hazar Mafeth, Jahar, Hadaram, Uzal, Dakla, Obal, Abimal, Sheba, Ophir, Avilah, and Jobab, all sons of Joktan. Their land goes from Mesha toward Sephar as far as the mountain ranges in the east. These are the descendants of Shem by family, language, country, and nation. This is the family tree of the sons of Noah as they developed into nations. From the nations developed all across the earth after the flood. God turned their language into Babel. At one time, the whole earth spoke the same language. It so happened that they moved out of the east. They came upon a plain in the land of Shinar and settled down. They said to one another, "Come, let's make bricks and fire them well." They used brick for stone and tar for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let's build ourselves a city and a tower that reaches heaven. Let's make ourselves famous so we won't be scattered here and there across the earth." God came down to look over the city and the tower those people had built. God took one look and said, "One people, one language. Why is only a first step. No telling what they'll come up with next. They'll stop at nothing. Come, we'll go down and garble their speech, so they won't understand each other." Then God scattered them from all over the world. and they had to quit building the city. That's how it came to be called Babel, because their God turned their language into Babel. From there, God scattered them all over the world. This is the story of Shem. When Shem was 100 years old, he had Arphaxad. It was 2 years after the flood. After he had Arphaxad, he lived 500 more years and had other sons and daughters. When Arphaxad was 35 years old, he had Shelah. After Arphaxad had Shelah, he lived 403 more years and had other sons and daughters. When Shelah was 30 years old, he had Eber. After Shelah had Eber, he lived 403 more years and had other sons and daughters. When Eber was 34 years old, he had Peleg. After Eber had Peleg, he lived 430 more years and had other sons and daughters. When Peleg was 30 years old, he had Ru. After he had Ru. After he had Ru, he lived 209 more years and had other sons and daughters. When Ru was 32 years old, he had Serug. After Ru had Serug, he lived 207 more years and had other sons and daughters. When Serug was 30 years old, he had Nahor. After Serug had Nahor, he lived 200 more years and had other sons and daughters. When Nahor was 29 years old, he had Terah. After Nahor had Terah, he lived 119 more years and had other sons and daughters. When Terah was 70 years old, he had Abram, Nahor, and Haran, the family tree of Terah. This is the story of Terah. Terah had Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Haran had Lot. Haran died before his father Terah in the country of his family, or of Chaldees. Abram and Nahor each got married. Abram's wife was Sarar. Nahor's wife was Milcah, the daughter of his brother Haran. Haran had 2 daughters, Milcah and Ishka. Sarah was barren. She had no children. Sarah was barren. She had no children. Terah took his son Abram, his grandson Lot, Haran's son, and Sarah, his daughter-in-law, this son of Abram's wife, and set out with them from the children I'm gonna stop right here. I'm screwed. Peace and love. God bless. Praise Jesus. Amen.